Imagine landing in Germany and immediately smelling that warm pretzel scent in the air. But hold on, before you run to the beer gardens, there are a few things you need to know to avoid embarrassing mishaps or getting into trouble. Ready to go? Arriving in Germany is like stepping into a parallel universe of organization. As soon as you land at the airport, the first thing that stands out is the efficiency. German airports like those in Frankfurt or Munich are massive but incredibly well marked. If you've ever gotten lost in a big airport before, relax. Here, the signs are clear, usually in German and English, and staff generally speak enough English to help if you get stuck. At immigration, the process is usually quick, but that doesn't mean it's sloppy. The border officials are serious and direct, so don't try to make small talk or crack jokes in line. They'll want to see your passport, travel insurance, yes, they can ask for it, proof of accommodation, and sometimes even your return ticket. It's not out of suspicion. It's simply the German way of doing things, methodical and detailed. After leaving the airport, you'll probably notice another striking trait of the country: punctuality. If the train says it leaves at 2:03 p.m., believe it, it will leave exactly at 2:03 p.m. It's not 2:05 p.m., and it's not when everyone boards. It's 2:03 p.m. It might seem like an exaggeration, but it's cultural. In fact, if you make an appointment with a German and show up 10 minutes late, it can be considered rude. It's different from other places where being late is seen as normal. On public transportation, prepare for something that might surprise you. There are often no turnstiles or gates. You buy a ticket, get on the train or bus, and that's it. There's a lot of trust, but don't abuse it. Ticket inspectors will appear out of nowhere, and if you don't have a valid ticket, the fine is heavy. Don't bother crying or making up excuses, they won't budge. Another important detail upon arrival is the weather. If you're visiting in the winter, the shock can be big, especially if you're from a tropical country. Temperatures can easily drop into the negatives, and the wind chill makes it even more intense. So, coats, gloves, and scarves stop being accessories and become survival items. In the summer, on the other hand, the temperature is pleasant, but don't be fooled. Some cities have almost no air conditioning in hotels or on public transport, as intense heat is still a new thing there. Culturally, you'll quickly notice that Germans are very direct in their communication. It's not rudeness, it's just their way. If you ask for information, and the person gives you only the bare essentials, don't think you were treated poorly. In their minds, being objective is a sign of respect. It's the opposite of countries where friendliness comes with long conversations. On the practical side, it's good to know that credit card use isn't as universal as in other countries. Many places still prefer cash, especially smaller restaurants, cafes, and markets. So withdrawing some euros at the airport can save you a headache. And speaking of money, tipping isn't mandatory, but rounding up the bill or leaving 5 to 10% is seen as a nice gesture. Right from the start, you'll feel that Germany has its own rhythm, practical, organized, and straight to the point. For some tourists, this might seem cold. For others, it's wonderful because it eliminates uncertainty. Either way, understanding this logic in the first few days will help you adapt without stress. One of the first things that enchants visitors to Germany is the feeling of being in a large open-air museum. You can walk through cities like Heidelberg and feel like you're in a medieval movie set, with imposing castles on hilltops and ancient bridges over crystal-clear rivers. In contrast, when you visit Berlin, you'll find a modern city full of street art, technology, and a nightlife that seems to never end. This blend of past and present is one of the country's trademarks and makes for a varied experience. The food is also a major draw. Germany is so much more than sausages and sauerkraut, though those are classics you can't miss. Depending on the region, the flavors change a lot. In the south, the cuisine is known for hearty dishes like schnitzel and spätzle, a delicious type of pasta. In the north, near the Baltic Sea, fish and seafood are more common. And of course, you can't talk about Germany without mentioning the bakeries on every corner. You'll find a window display of fresh breads and pastries that look like they just came out of the oven, ready to win over a hungry tourist. Another positive that makes Germany shine is its public transport. It doesn't matter if you're in a big city or a small town, there's always an efficient bus, tram, or train option, For tourists, this means freedom. You can plan itineraries without relying on a car, which saves time and money. Plus, the connections between cities are fast, and traveling by train through the countryside is almost like being inside a postcard, with green fields, vineyards, and picturesque villages passing by the window. Culturally, Germany is a treasure trove. World-renowned museums, like the Pergamon in Berlin or the Alte Pinakothek in Munich, offer collections that impress even those who aren't art fans. For classical music lovers, it's the birthplace of geniuses like Beethoven and Bach, and it's still easy to find affordable concerts in historic theaters and churches. As for folk festivals, the country doesn't disappoint. Oktoberfest in Munich is just the most famous example, but there are hundreds of smaller festivals all over the country throughout the year, celebrating everything from wine to carnival. You can't forget about the connection to nature. Despite its image as an industrialized country, Germany has parks, forests, and trails that look hand-painted. The Black Forest, for example, is a classic destination for those who enjoy hiking or biking through fairy tale landscapes. In the Bavarian Alps, the sight of snow-covered mountains is breathtaking and offers activities like skiing and snowboarding. Even within big cities, green spaces are everywhere. The Englischer Garten in Munich is larger than New York's Central Park and serves as a refuge for residents and tourists alike. And let's not forget the hospitality of many Germans. While they are direct and to the point in how they communicate, those who befriend them discover a generous people who love to share their culture and traditions. Participating in a typical summer barbecue, for example, is a chance to see a more relaxed and warm side that many don't expect to find. As incredible as Germany is, it also has some details that can catch tourists by surprise and even cause frustration if you were not prepared. The first shock is often the price in certain regions. Cities like Munich, Frankfurt, and Hamburg have a high cost of living, and this is directly reflected in lodging, food, and transport. Booking a hotel last minute in these cities can cost double what you expected. Even a simple meal in a tourist restaurant can be expensive, especially if you compare it to other European destinations. Another point that might bother some travelers is the rigidity of the rules. While flexibility is seen as normal in other countries, in Germany, rules are taken very seriously. A classic example is crossing the street on a red light, even if no cars are coming. For Germans, this is almost a crime, and you might get a public scolding, even in front of children. It might seem exaggerated, but it's part of the local mindset. Speaking of mindset, the Germans' direct communication style can also feel strange to those accustomed to a lot of friendliness and long roundabout conversations. If you ask for information, you'll likely only receive the exact answer, without smiles or extra phrases. It's not rudeness, it's cultural. But for some tourists, this initial coolness can give the wrong impression. Another detail that catches many off guard is the payment situation. Even in the 21st century, many establishments don't accept credit cards. Small cafes, neighborhood restaurants, and even some hotels only work with cash or a local debit card. If you arrive with only an international card, you might find yourself in a bind. Additionally, ATMs can charge high fees for withdrawals, so planning this detail before you travel makes all the difference. In terms of weather, there are also challenges. The German winter can be extremely harsh, with sub-zero temperatures that make even a short walk uncomfortable. The lack of sun during this time can also affect many people's moods. In the summer, despite the more pleasant temperatures, there's another issue. Few homes and hotels have air conditioning, so heat waves can make rooms feel suffocating. The language can also be a barrier in some situations. In big tourist cities, English solves almost everything, but in smaller villages or in more day-to-day interactions, like at local markets, it can be hard to communicate. Some locals get impatient when they realize a tourist doesn't speak German, and this can lead to uncomfortable moments. Another point to be aware of are scams targeting tourists. In larger cities, especially Berlin, it's common to find people offering help at ATMs or even pretending to be transport officials to sell fake tickets. There are also reports of pickpockets in busy areas like Alexanderplatz or Hauptbahnhof, the central train stations. The country's security is high compared to many places, but carelessness in these situations can lead to a loss. And you can't forget about the bureaucracy in some processes. Germany is known for its efficiency, but also for its number of forms and rules. For those planning something beyond tourism, like studying or working, dealing with the paperwork can be tiring. Even in day-to-day life as a tourist, sometimes everything seems to have a protocol to follow, which can be frustrating for those who like to improvise. One of the coolest things about Germany is that, despite being a super-organized country full of rules and traditions, there are several curiosities that will leave any tourist speechless. A classic example is the famous Autobahn, the country's most well-known highway. In some sections, there's no speed limit. That's right. If your car can handle it, and you're brave enough, you can speed like a Formula One driver. Of course, not everyone does this, as most respect the road conditions, but just knowing this possibility exists is an adrenaline rush. Another curiosity is the Germans' relationship with recycling. They take it so seriously that almost every house has different bins for separating plastic, glass, paper, organic waste, and even specific packaging. The most interesting part is the fan system. When you buy a glass or plastic bottle, you pay an extra deposit. Then you just return the bottle to automatic machines in supermarkets, and the money comes back to you in the form of a coupon. It's almost like playing a video game, but with real rewards. Now, if you think Germany is all about beer, you're mistaken. Yes, the country has one of the strongest beer cultures in the world, with the famous Reinheitsgebot, the beer purity law of 1516, which dictated that beer could only be made with water, malt, and hops. But what many people don't know is that they are also passionate about wine, especially in the Rhine and Moselle regions. The Riesling white wine is considered a national treasure and features in many local festivals. Speaking of festivals, besides Oktoberfest, there are peculiar traditions that stand out. During Christmas, for example, Germany turns into a magical storybook setting. The Weihnachtsmärkte, or Christmas markets, appear in almost every city, with lights, traditional foods, artisanal decorations, and the famous warm drink called Glühwein, a spiced wine served to warm you up in the cold. The atmosphere is so enchanting that even those who don't like Christmas get into the spirit. Another curious detail is that Germans have a word for almost everything, often gigantic and difficult to pronounce. Terms like Donau-Dampfschifffahrtsgesellschaftskapitän, which means Danube Steamship Company Captain, show the creativity and practicality of the language, as they simply combine several words into one to describe anything. This can be funny for those learning German, but is part of the cultural identity. In daily life, there are habits that also surprise. For example, Sundays are sacred days of rest. Many stores and markets close completely, even in big cities. For those used to running errands on the weekend, it can be a shock. But at the same time, this shows how Germans value their free time and family life. And if you like historical curiosities, you'll have a great time. Germany is the country of castles. It's estimated that there are more than 20,000 scattered across the territory. Some are ruins, others are perfectly preserved, like Neuschwanstein, which inspired the Disney castle. Additionally, in cities like Cologne, you'll find cathedrals that took centuries to build and still impress with their grandeur. When it comes to etiquette and behavior, Germany is one of those places where small details make all the difference. Germans are known for being direct, objective, and, above all, punctual. So if you make an appointment for 10 a.m., don't show up at 10:05 a.m. thinking it's fine. For them, a 5-minute delay is already a sign of disrespect. It's best to always be on time or even a few minutes early, especially for a more formal commitment. Another strong characteristic is the value placed on personal space. On public transport, for example, it's not common to strike up a conversation with strangers. If you're on the subway and try to chat with someone out of the blue, you might only get a polite nod or even a suspicious look. It's not that Germans are rude. It's simply their way. Everyone respects each other's space and prefers more objective interactions. If you're invited to a German's home, there are a few rules that show good manners and consideration. Bringing a gift is almost a must, and it doesn't have to be expensive. Flowers, a bottle of wine, or chocolates are sufficient. Just avoid bringing carnations, as they are very associated with funerals here, which can cause discomfort. When you arrive, take off your shoes before entering, unless the host says otherwise. This practice is seen as a sign of care and respect for the person's home. At mealtimes, there are also some basic rules of etiquette. Wait for the host to say Guten Appetit before you start eating, and never put your elbows on the table. If you're drinking beer or wine with the group, remember to make eye contact when you toast. For Germans, looking away during a toast is a sign of disrespect, and there's even a superstition that it can bring bad luck. Another situation that trips up many tourists is when it's time to split the bill. Unlike in some countries, it's not common in Germany to just throw all the money on a single bill to split later. The waiter will usually ask, zusammen oder getrennt, together or separate. And if you say get rent, everyone pays for exactly what they consumed. It's practical but can surprise those used to handling it another way. In communication, remember that Germans prefer frankness. If you didn't like something, you can say it directly as long as it's respectful. In the same way, don't expect a lot of beating around the bush in their responses. This avoids misunderstandings, but for some foreigners it can sound abrupt. It's all a matter of perspective. For them, being direct is being honest. Another important detail is the relationship with rules and laws. Whether on the road, in a waiting line, or in public areas, Germans follow rules with discipline. If you try to find a workaround or cut in line, you'll get some very unfriendly looks and, in some cases, even a lecture. On public transport, always validate your ticket. Inspectors appear suddenly and issue fines without discussion. This seriousness is part of the culture and is valued by the majority of the population. It's also worth mentioning that in more formal settings, like business meetings, greeting each person with a firm handshake is essential. Eye contact is important because it shows confidence and respect. In more intimate circles, like among close friends, it's common to exchange 2 kisses on the cheek, depending on the region, but this never happens right away with strangers. When it comes to safety, Germany is generally considered one of the most peaceful countries in Europe, but that doesn't mean you can relax completely. The crime rate is low compared to other destinations, but minor scams and situations of carelessness still exist, especially in large cities like Berlin, Frankfurt, and Hamburg. The first thing to watch out for is theft in busy areas. Train stations, crowded subways, and popular tourist spots are prime locations for pickpockets. They usually work in pairs or groups, distracting the victim on one side while another takes their wallet, phone, or bag. To protect yourself, always wear a backpack or bag in front of your body in crowded places, and avoid carrying large amounts of cash. If possible, leave your passport and important documents in the hotel safe and only carry a copy. On public transport, the rule is simple. Keep your belongings close. Open bags, phones in back pockets, or loose wallets are practically an invitation for trouble. An extra tip is not to leave luggage unattended, even for a few seconds, as, besides being a theft risk, it can also raise security concerns for locals. An abandoned suitcase could even trigger police teams. Another situation that requires attention are scams targeting tourists. One of the most common happens at ATMs. People offer to help, and while distracting you, write down your PIN or swap your card. Always use ATMs located inside banks or shopping malls, never on isolated streets. There are also scammers who pose as transport employees selling fake tickets. Therefore, always buy tickets from official machines or recognized apps. In traffic, safety also deserves attention. Cyclists in Germany take the rules very seriously, and bike lanes are sacred. Walking or standing in them can cause arguments and even accidents. So, pay attention to the markings on the ground, because sometimes the bike space is separated only by a line. When crossing streets, always obey the pedestrian signal, even if no cars are coming. In addition to avoiding fines, this prevents awkward situations. Another important point is being mindful of alcohol consumption. Germany is famous for its beers, but drinking excessively and causing a disturbance in public can lead to serious problems with the police. During festivals like Oktoberfest, there is always extra surveillance to ensure everything goes smoothly, so enjoy, but in moderation. In winter, safety also involves the weather. Sidewalks can be slippery due to snow and ice, and it's not uncommon for tourists to fall due to a lack of proper footwear. Invest in non-slip shoes and warm clothes because hypothermia can happen faster than you think in negative temperatures. As for health, the German system is excellent but expensive for those without travel insurance. Therefore, do not skimp on this detail. Having a policy covers everything from simple consultations to emergency situations. Remember that hospitals can charge high fees even for quick checkups, so this is an essential investment. It is also worth noting that political demonstrations happen in some large cities, especially in Berlin. They are usually peaceful, but can attract crowds and police. It is best to avoid these areas, both for safety and to avoid getting stuck in blocked traffic. Traveling to Germany is an immersion into a country full of history, culture, and unique quirks that you won't find anywhere else. Of course, there are some challenges, like the weather, high prices in certain cities, and the need for basic safety precautions, but none of that diminishes the experience. If you like destinations where everything works well but still offers surprises at every corner, Germany will win you over. Pack your bags, get your coat ready, or your beer glass, depending on the season, and jump into this adventure. I'm sure this trip will give you memories to last a lifetime. Prost!